We may have lost in the first round of the college football playoff for the second straight year, but this was another successful season in the Arkansas State Dynasty, as we have now finished 4 seasons. We've had 2 double-digit winning seasons back-to-back, and as we look ahead to the future, this team is set to begin a brand new era. Many of our best players are now graduating, and that includes our quarterback Duncan Grant, 2 of our best wide receivers, our 5 best defensive backs, and top pass rusher Charlie Collins. But what would make launching this new era a little bit easier? Keeping quarterback Gerald Ogletree, one of the most important players I've recruited in this dynasty. I managed to get the playing style deal breaker to a B-, so I knew going into this offseason there'd be a chance he would enter the transfer portal, which would change the entire future of this team. I felt that if we kept Ogletree, along with 4 returning offensive line starters, that would be a great foundation for year 5. So today I'm going to recap the off-season stream I did a couple days ago and show you everything you need to know leading up to week 1 of the new season. I really enjoyed going through season 4 and seeing the offense transform into a more pass-heavy team, and I think a better version than many of my pass-heavy teams I've done in past series. And I've really wanted to take this team into the future with Gerald Ogletree, hopefully one day to the SEC. Now, to make this series a little more challenging and I think interesting, I wanted to address the transfer portal, as that's allowed us to climb the college football ladder faster than I anticipated because we've added so much talent. I've adjusted the sliders, so now there's a max of 15 players per team that will enter, and the CPU transfer chance I think is down from a 48 to a 38, so it's the same as ours, and the entire idea is to have a smaller transfer portal and more competition on average per player. So let's go through this offseason, beginning with us having to make a bit of a staff change, as our defensive coordinator, Griffin McCarley, has now been hired by West Virginia. So taking a look at the available coaches, I did find one coach here I liked in James Anderson, who gave us access to the elite recruiter tree. That would be extremely valuable, and he had an Alabama pipeline. Like, those 2 things would be huge. We offered him the job, and he rejected it. So we have to find plan B. And in this next stage, I found a high-level coach in Eric Luke, whose prestige is low, but has a lot of access to the strategy tree. So he was the second offer, and he accepts to become our defensive coordinator. With his abilities, we are going to have some recruiting boosts on the defensive side, which is a nice bonus, especially there with D linemen. And then inside of strategist, we're going to get a boost to visits and deal breaker thresholds for linebackers and defensive linemen. He doesn't have the same impact on the secondary, and it does drop our coach prestige grade because he's a D-. So that's something we have to build back up now. But the champions of college football this season are the Florida Gators, going 14-2, winning the SEC. They got matched up with Ole Miss after they beat us, and I thought Ole Miss could make a deep run, but they get knocked out by their rivals in Gainesville, who then beat Pittsburgh badly, and then by 7, they take down Clemson to claim the title this year. They win it in Tampa as well. I know not in Gainesville, but pretty darn close, right? So let's move on now to the rest of the offseason. Players leaving. This has been a huge part of the series, but as we've gotten more successful, we haven't seen as many impactful players choose to leave. And now it's just a list of 5 players. Gerald Ogletree is staying put, which was the biggest win I could ask for in this offseason. I had a chance to convince everybody to stay. And we had a couple players projected to get drafted. So beginning with Pierre Shembo, a wide receiver I think really highly of, really wanted to see him come back, and he does. Tackle Taylor Ezzie, leaving for playing time. No, he's going to stick around. Elliott Head at linebacker fails to be persuaded. And then 4-star receiver Stephen Harris chooses to enter the transfer portal. Jason Goodman, the linebacker, does choose to stay. Now, I said this during the stream. I felt that if I had to pick between the two receivers, I wanted Shembo back over Harris. Shembo, a little bit better athlete, high route running upside, and already a really good route runner as a 78 overall. So I felt that he was ready to step into a starting role next year. And then for the NFL draft results, we end up with 4 players selected, which gives us 6 in this series. Charlie Collins goes in the 3rd, Cam Keys in the 5th, Duncan Grant in the 6th, Marcus Gorey in the 7th. So that's how much we're losing on defense. 3 draft picks plus other main contributors. It was Temple who won the conference this year. They have 2 players selected in the 2nd and 3rd rounds. We never had a chance to play them. And then we couldn't see it. I went too fast during the stream, but Bo Jackson from Texas, he ends up going in the 4th. Tulane also had a cornerback go round 1. So let's get to the offseason recruiting then. We know we don't have to focus on quarterback the same way. I felt like in terms of the transfer portal, we could continue to look at secondary after losing, again, 5 of our best defensive backs. We play 3 safeties and 3 corners regularly. 5 of those players graduated. 2 of them were drafted. I like our class incoming, but it doesn't fix every hole on this roster. With the return of Gerald Ogletree, I no longer need a JUCO quarterback who's going to become a senior in Zach Isaacs, so I did take him off the board to then put points on Chauncey, Missouri, a late find that I liked a little bit more than my other options. I made sure to target a kicker, and I still had a few key high school recruits like 4-star tight end Sam Phoenix. Now for the 4 stars, you still see teams stay very competitive trying to recruit them into the offseason. The 3 stars, not so much, but there were a couple more 3 stars like guard Doug Lucky. And again, getting into the transfer portal, the main thing I wanted to see was some cornerback help. I feel like the combination of Gorey and Keys was pivotal to our success last year, and I was worried about too much of a drop-off. I also looked at the running back position, considering we just don't have established talent there. And then 4-star incoming freshman Ron Best is just going to be a true freshman, might not be ready to carry the entire load. So we have, by the way, now we're a 3-star program, giving us even more hours to scout in the offseason. So I can do way more with actually scouting these position groups and making sure I'm targeting someone who's fitting the exact role I have in mind. And like I have throughout the years, I found some really intriguing players. You know, it's fun when you're a smaller school and you see some of these players that enter and it's like, we have no other way of getting a player of this caliber right now. I even decided we'd make a little bit of a run at the 5-star Christian Randall who was entering the portal. Didn't expect to be successful, but I felt like I had the points to take a swing there at least. I would like 1 offensive lineman here if possible. Jake Cook looks extremely well-rounded and ready to step in. If you want to see all the details of recruiting, the stream is going to have a lot more of that. I cut a significant amount out for these off-season edited videos. We do have Master Motivator unlocked now because we reached the 5 players drafted milestone. We actually have 6, so that's another coaching ability tree we'll have access to. Going through, now this is stage 2 of the offseason. Got locked out by a handful of players, and you can see that there is a good deal of competition for the players that we're targeting. So Randall has to get taken off the board. And then we have some work to do for players here in the secondary. The top 2 cornerbacks I liked had a lot of overall interest. Thankfully, we start off pretty high on their boards. From there, it's just nailing down what hard sells fit well and thinking about potential visits and if I need to look for more targets when I only have 1 option at a position, let's say, and it doesn't look great. Sometimes I need good backup plans, so I have enough hours now to where I can get a lot going on the board at once between the high school players and then the portal. I knew I had to find some other running back options. Don't mind scouting these guys. Keontae Ruggins looked like a good fit. And then Baraka Odenibo with good speed, acceleration, along with a high change of direction. So I handed out 3 scholarships there at running back, and again, our current depth is just not great. I haven't recruited difference makers at the position yet. Bradley Durham, I thought, was interesting, but just doesn't have enough ceiling there with his skill caps. And then I continue to scout guards. Here's Marvin Standiford, looks like a really good run blocker. A very key part of the offseason recruiting is handling your visits, because that can give you a tremendous boost, especially when you can stack complimentary visits in the same week and then keep other teams from setting up visits. I knew I had to get going here on the defensive side, so Raheem Stroud ends up being the first player we schedule a visit for. And after this stage, halfway through, we still have not added anybody. It usually takes the entire 4-week cycle. We see here for Sam Phoenix that Ole Miss is making a very strong push. We're in first. For Doug Lucky, I might have too many guards on my board, so I had to kind of clean up the board a little bit as I went. For those 2 new running backs, we immediately jumped to the top of their board, so that looked really good while we were struggling in the battle for Handy. And then for Raheem Stroud, we fall because of a big push by LSU. So I nail down the hard sells here and start to go to work on setting up visits for week 3. Safety Braylon Wortham, he is scheduled to that same week as Kansas was looking to keep him there. And then Elliott Head, who had left us in the portal, I wanted to try to get to come back. I knew we had good dev because the chat reminded me. I had completely forgotten on my own. Carl Handy, we schedule him for week 4. That was going to be our week to schedule all the offensive players. For running backs, you've got to stack them with offensive linemen. The tight end actually doesn't make it complementary with a running back, which is unfortunate. But Sam Phoenix does get scheduled for that same session. Jake Cook, he's able to make it a little bit more complementary. I thought he would complete the offensive line really nicely. And I'm still at times having enough hours to throw other players on the board. Like tight end was something like way down my list, like the 8th thing I wanted to do if I had the chance. And Akeem Madden here, that is a lot of speed with great receiving ability, 84 catching. Yeah, we give an offer there to Akeem Madden at tight end. And that gets us through this stage on to week 3. And we have added Elliott Head, the will linebacker, again, who was already on our team. And then you can see that a lot of these high school players are narrowing it down to really 1 or 2 schools. Ole Miss on our heels the same week as we have a visit with Sam Phoenix. Would we be able to hold off their pursuit? Also have a gem here in Dalton Countess, a JUCO player. Here's how the portal battles are looking. It looked like we were going to add a couple different running backs. I really wanted to make things work at corner. You can see the visit here set up for Kevin McAfee now in week 4. And then for Raheem Stroud, it's just us and LSU. The visit put us back in front, but with 1 week to go, could we really hold such a slim lead? Braylon Wortham had a great visit, so now we have a big lead there. We go down to Jake Cook, and now we see that we have failed to meet a deal breaker. I don't know if this is like a bug or something, but all of a sudden we move into second, and this looks like it's a bad situation. So I still had Marvin Standiford on the board, just trying to cover myself in case a main target does not look like the battle's in good shape. The last thing I did was scout receivers. I scouted a bunch of them at Gadget and Speedster archetype, trying to find someone dynamic for special teams because we have to replace J.J. Harrell. And I found it really tough to find anybody who had more than 90 or 91 speed. That athletic ability is just not easy to find, I guess. Checking the portal again, we see that Stephen Harris has left us to go back to his home state. He has committed to Alabama. And we'll check in on him again later. But let's go wrap up this recruiting season as we will add to this team a safety in Braylon Wortham who can step in and play right away as a senior. Chauncey, Missouri as a 3-star quarterback gives us some needed depth. We get a kicker in Jamie Finger. Then we'll get Doug Lucky at left guard. We get Elijah Hopper for more defensive tackle depth. That's been kind of a thin position. Dalton Countess, the JUCO corner. Baraka Odenibo at running back. And to help us replace Charlie Collins, we get Tylon Lee, the 3-star edge. We'll then add in another running back in Keontae Ruggins. We get 2 in the portal. CJ Bass at safety. Then we'll get Marvin Standiford. There's a good run blocking addition. Akeem Madden at tight end, added very late to the board. Andre Oladukin at edge. David Ivey joins as a receiver. And then Ricky June, the big receiver who will come here for his senior season. Which means we lost Sam Phoenix to Ole Miss. They add the 4-star in-state tight end. We were so close. We lose Carl Handy. He ends up going to Auburn. We had moved into second place for him. Kevin McAfee chooses Oklahoma, and Rakeem Stroud LSU. The cornerbacks were my top priority. I missed on both. Jake Cook had chosen Colorado State, but they pulled their offer, which meant that we'd likely get him to show up later on our roster. So all in all, the 28th ranked recruiting class, I think a very solid showing for us going into year 5. The best class in the American, but there are some schools doing a really good job. Tulane added 5 4-stars. Rice had 3, along with the only 5-star in the entire conference. They get James Ramirez, the best strong safety in this entire class. So going over depth traits then for our new players. Chauncey Missouri has impact. Jamie Finger has just normal. We get impact on Jem Doug Lucky, impact on Elijah Hopper, and star on Dalton Countess. To the transfer portal, we missed out on Carl Handy, who had star and is going into his junior season. I think we did a pretty good job, though, at running back, getting some guys who can play. Missed out on both cornerbacks who had impact. Normal here on Bass, impact on Wortham, impact on Jake Cook, who I expected to see on the roster when we got deeper into the offseason. And then we go down to Akeem Madden, the freshman transfer. Elite development. We've added a prime tight end prospect just 1 year into his career, and he was redshirted a year ago. On to position changes, which we took less time than maybe ever, considering that in this entire 26-man class, I added no athletes. But I have to move somebody who is an athlete from our previous class. Legend Onwenu is like a high 50s offensive lineman at center. We move him to defensive tackle. And then from there, we, considered, does Keontae Bargava move to running back? And honestly, his ceiling is so good as a receiver. I want to see that development, and he will play far more receiver this season compared to last. Then from there, just evening out some of these positions, Elias Butt goes to left guard. And then I had, 8 free safeties and no strong safeties. So I'm moving both of our 4-star incoming freshmen box specialist archetype players, Ezekiel DeBeer and Steven Ricks, to strong safety, neither expected to play this season. And then looking at corner, this is the reality. I was not able to make that big addition, which means we are rolling with the guys that I've recruited outside of the transfer portal. But there was a safety that I thought would make a good candidate to move positions. So CJ Bass with 71 man, 77 zone, decent press coverage. He moves to corner, and upon that, we move ahead to see him gain a dev trait. So it looks like this position transition for him could be a really big thing for this team. Next up, training results. We see the top of this roster now, and at the very top of this list is tight end Akeem Madden. And I'm sorry, I guess he wasn't red-shirted. Thought he'd be. He's a sophomore going into this year and the highest rated player on this team. We have a tight end now that, was lucky for me to even find. I added him late in the entire transfer portal process. He got to 87 overall with 86 catching. 76 run blocking is very good. Combine that with 83 strength 90 speed. An absolute game changer tight end talent for Gerald Ogletree in his first year as a starting quarterback. Ogletree's development did not go all that well. He got just a little bit better and not much in terms of accuracy. It was actually his arm strength that improved. So there are some areas of his game that need some work, but I'm excited to see him finally get the chance now to lead the team this year. At running back, thanks to the transfer portal, we have a couple 84 overall options who can step in and help us solve our run game concerns going into this year. I felt like Ruggins could be the team's leading ball carrier this year just because he's a much better between the tackles, more north-south oriented runner. You'll see how things went though in the practice. Keontae Bargava gets a colossal +9 upgrade to an 82 at receiver. He will continue to play a hybrid role, but again be far more of a wide receiver this season. Ofisa Orlando was a JUCO player I added way back when, and he now has outstanding route running. I think our offense is in really good hands this year, and it's a great situation for Ogletree to step in. We lost a lot, but we have offensive line stability along with a new dynamic player at tight end in Akeem Madden. We return 4 of the same offensive line starters as last year and added a couple players in the portal, so I feel really good about that side of the ball. Defense, I think, is going to be a question until we see what they can do. Tylon Lee's going to step in. He's a starting caliber player, but we know Charlie Collins was an elite top-tier edge rusher for us. Can Devin Noteboom fill those shoes? No portal addition at defensive tackle. Our best new player there is a 4-star freshman in Jeffrey Brazil. So I do worry that we don't have like a stout run defender there at defensive tackle. But we do now have another situational pass rusher to potentially use in Legend Onwenu, who should be far better on the defensive side of the ball versus the offense. Linebacker doesn't see a lot of change. We actually return a lot of the same contributors as last year. We lose Grant Bierman, but we get back with Sevich, Woodrow. We got Dallas Brown developing really well. Jaden Cotton's good in coverage. So that position group remains intact. It's cornerback that doesn't see colossal growth, that doesn't see anybody on the level of Marcus Gorey or Cameron Keys. And I think back to last year, and Devon Jolly, who now becomes our number 1, was a player teams were attacking last season. So hopefully he's gotten better enough to be that leader at cornerback. Braylon Wortham is the new free safety, and I think Cordell Herring's going to be the strong safety as we just need to develop our new freshmen, and they're not ready to take on that spot yet. For the encouraged transfers portion, we just released 1 player as I had 86 on the roster, and we're going to let a senior who would be way down on the depth chart go in Thaddeus Donaldson. So our roster is full, and I think we have a lot of great players for this year's team and the future. Now, 1 player we lost, Stephen Harris, just became a 90 overall with boost. He's truly an 88, but the step he took this offseason, man, that is incredible. Up from 86 speed to 91 with outstanding route running. Stephen Harris is going to start this year for Alabama. And I made the decision during the offseason that this year we would skip the Arkansas game. Duke is a team we're going to play, actually our first game of the year against, but we're going to skip the Arkansas battle this season after winning back-to-back games and seeing just where their program is right now. They're one of the weaker teams in the SEC. They do not have a talented offense by SEC standards at all. And we are going to replace them on the schedule with Alabama. We are going to play at least one team, every year that is supposed to be above our level. And then we're going to play a team that I think is similar to our level, but from a different conference. So we're going to play Alabama and Arizona State this year. Let's go take a look at the skill caps now for our newest players. At quarterback, Chauncey Missouri. I think has a limited ceiling, but we're just looking to develop a backup, and he may be able to, but the accuracy cap is really bad, so we're going to keep looking for at least one quarterback every season. Then we go to running back, Baraka Odenibo, a redshirt junior. Doesn't have a lot more potential to grow, but has a nice skill set, while Keontae Ruggins does have pretty good caps, but I do think he has some limitations in his game we'll talk about during practice. The 4-star gem, though, that we got this year, Ron Best, the freshman with elite development, he gets outstanding caps and his ceiling is very high. Hoping to see him take a leap there with his quickness, get some more speed and acceleration, which would make him one of the best running backs we've ever had in the series, if that works out. We added David Ivey, who I think will be a solid depth receiver. We get Akeem Madden, of course, one of the talks of the entire offseason. I think one of the biggest stories. The ceiling he has is astronomical, and we didn't know who he was before the stream. And I didn't think I was adding a player, a game changer in this offseason at any skill position. Jake Cook, he's going to be here as a senior, as a very well-rounded left guard starter. Josh Casa, he's the 4-star tackle I picked up in recruiting last year, and he has much better upside as a pass blocker than run blocker, but should become a very good staple of this offensive line next season. Jeffrey Brazil at D tackle with star dev and really good caps. Sky's the limit for him. I think he's going to be the anchor of our defensive line, probably beginning next year. Back to the offensive line with Doug Lucky. Didn't get the best run blocking upside there, but does have good caps for his pass protection. Elijah Hopper, we go to the defensive side again. Not the best caps. His best chance to make it is as a rotational guy, or if the run stopping gets really high, closer to its max. Linebacker, Tyree Figueroa, star dev, really good caps. Just excited to see how these guys develop. Him and Ahmad Tiffin, I think, will be starting maybe next year. Tiffin's got versatility, too. He can rush the passer, might be a dangerous blitzer. In the secondary, Nate Hickok. Don't think his ceiling is really all that high, especially in terms of man coverage. And then our freshman safeties, Ezekiel DeBeer, I think has decent upside, mainly as a closer to the line of scrimmage safety. Not the same upside there in deep coverage. While Steven Ricks has unlimited pass coverage upside. So they're the same archetype, but perhaps they'll develop into being slightly different players. Ricks might end up being the more valuable based on the cover upside. And then our kicker, Jamie Finger, looks like he'll max out at 91 kick power, which ought to be enough. So, from one recruiting class to another, it never ends. On to 2029. This next season, we have 9 seniors along the offensive line who are going to graduate. So we're going to be looking for that this year when we're recruiting. The defensive line is also going to see a lot of players end up leaving. And it's going to be the first time that I have players I recruited as freshmen are going to be entering their senior years, like Devin Noteboom or BJ Wasevich. So on the defensive side, we're going to lose 2 defensive tackles, 3 edge rushers, 2 Mike linebackers, a couple more safeties. And so getting into the recruiting season now as a 3-star team. For the very first time, there's a 5-star player with us in their top 10. That is tackle Rico Burns. So he obviously goes on the board, but our main focus is on 4-star talent again. Looking at the state of our secondary, I also want to try to find some high-level cornerback prospects. I haven't really had significant luck at that position. I think Devon Jolly is the best that I've been able to recruit, but many of the players that I've brought in have lower developments, a lot of normals there. We did not get much development in the offseason, so back to the drawing board there. Thankfully, a couple 4-stars had us towards the top of their board. I'm trying to keep in mind certain deal breakers, especially on offense, because I think we're going to continue being a very pass-heavy team. Here I'm getting into the motivator coach abilities, and I really wish I had spent these points earlier, but I wanted to get like a development boost there at the quarterback position. And then I'm going to save up my points because I'd really like to buy into the tactician part of the tree so I could get some ratings boosts that I think are key, maybe in the secondary, as I try to get that stronger for the future. So here's a little bit of the scouting that I did then on that initial board. A lot of these players showed initial interest in Arkansas State, or they were in a pipeline. Obviously, a lot changes, early season on the board when we get locked out, or I see us battling with like 5 SEC teams, and I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be a small fish in a big pond today. I did find this prospect, though. This is a wide receiver who has 90 throw power. We're going to talk more about recruiting after I go through some of the highlights of our practice here at the end of the offseason stream. One of the very first things I wanted to do was take a look at our running backs and then tight end Akeem Madden. I can't believe we added a player of his caliber at the position. But at running back, like I said earlier, I wanted Keontae Ruggins to potentially be that main running back this year. I felt like he was better suited for it. But basically, as soon as we got into practice, I got to see Baraka Odenibo, and that change of direction, it's one of the biggest differences between the two players. The Odenibo change of direction, by the way, is now a 99, whereas Ruggins has 80. And you feel that anytime you're trying to not run in a straight line, basically. So now my thought is that Baraka Odenibo is definitely going to be the lead running back, and you'll see some good highlights of him here throughout this little montage of plays. I'm excited about the offense this season. I feel like I have trended a lot of my series in the past towards a pass-heavy style, but I think I have better ideas of how to run that offense now. I think last season, those last 5-6 games were a pretty good success. Maybe not the playoff game as much. That was the most difficult game. Yeah, here's a bunch of carries here where you can just see with Ruggins not changing directions very well, and he wasn't breaking that many tackles either. Odenibo, definitely the better player. There is a nice deep ball to Akeem Madden, who really unlocks a level of upside with this offense I don't think that we've seen. A tight end who can get open deep or at least stretch the field, be a run after the catch threat, but he's also solid in the running game. Like, I think we have a potential legendary player on our hands if I use him correctly. I've hyped up many a tight end in the past. I'm not sure many have been as talented as Madden is here today. So I'm hoping I can find the right ways to make him a big part of this offense and for us to start to look like a team that can make its way into the SEC. We have the quarterback I wanted. We have an offensive line with a tremendous amount of experience. I think one change you'll see this year is far more spread looks, empty, 4 receiver, but maybe not too much because I want to keep our tight end Akeem Madden out there. But with Ogletree's arm strength and his mobility, I think the options are just wide open. I don't want to fall into some of the same traps I have in past teams where I'm kind of pass heavy to a fault. And there are certain ways, I think, as an offense, when you're pass heavy, you kind of have to mix in more screens and ways of replacing the run game. So you're not just, airing it out on first down, missing some of those, and now it's 2nd and 10. And so you're throwing it there. 3rd down, you're probably throwing again. Like, I don't want to be one of these teams that ends up, like, losing these games where we had, like, 42 passes to 9 runs, and it's like, okay, we lost sight of what we really need to do. You do see some of the missed throws here from Ogletree, and I think that's just one thing we're going to see. It's not developed that much yet, but the upside is obviously present. And to wrap things up now, these are the things I did after the off-season live stream. We're going to be playing Week 0 against Duke, and this is my current board of recruits. I have 10 players here I am putting points into. There are more I would like, but I only have 600 hours, which is more than we're used to seeing in this series. So I am targeting a cornerback here in Randall Lyles. We are currently in first place. On paper, the ratings don't look incredible, but we're looking for players who could start maybe as redshirt freshmen. Deontay Dobbs, he's a gem. We're going for 2 cornerbacks right now. Athlete Oliver Sanders is probably going to be an offensive lineman, but there's always potential on defense, especially with how athletic he is. Cole Sandland at guard is a pass protection specialist. Alfonso Ahmad, a 90-speed athlete here at linebacker, potentially safety. Really like him. Jamerson Traore at linebacker is a signal caller archetype, which would give us something different from the other linebackers on the team. Defensive tackle Alfred Heaney, one of the highest upside players, I think, on the board currently. Incredibly strong, incredibly hard-hitting. Mike Muhammad at defensive tackle, I think very similar, maybe half a tier down from him. And then DeMarcus Daly, the wide receiver, or maybe quarterback with that strong arm. We'll see about the accuracies one day, hopefully. Then right tackle Leon Hennessy, pass protection specialist. Again, I don't feel content right now that this is all I'm targeting on the offensive line, and especially in terms of players who can help us in the running game. I'm not done there. So I'll have more points, in the next week to see if I want to stretch it to maybe 12 or 13 players I'm targeting. So we're going to open this year against Duke. Then it throws us into the American Conference schedule with Navy and Memphis. Then we're getting Alabama. You guys want Bama. We're getting that week 3. Then we take on Arizona State. Really excited about that matchup, considering it should be one of our most even on paper. Just looking at their roster versus ours. We'll play USF, Temple, the champions of last year, ECU, UAB, again ULM, UTSA, and finally North Texas. Here is a brief look at the overall ratings for us and some of our opponents. I feel like our overall spread is not much different than it was a year ago. Duke, despite being a 74, has plenty of really good talent at the top of their roster. We will see a new quarterback when we face them this season. Navy, lower overall. A few players here get into the 80s, and of course they run a unique scheme that I'll have to be ready for. We got Memphis here, maybe slightly higher rated than last season. Their defense is rated a 76. Alabama, we know that this is going to be the toughest game on the regular season schedule, and it's going to be very difficult for us to go there, be competitive, let alone win. But we are going to give it our best shot. We're going to see Stephen Harris and what we missed out on by not giving him more of a chance here this last season. And then Arizona State, I think, despite their overall being lower, the players show they're on our level. And then North Texas, they are an outstanding team that was great when they were healthy last year at quarterback. Now they're changing quarterbacks this season. So we'll see how well they play, but I want some revenge after last year. We close our season against them. And here's Temple, the champions defending their crown, have one of the best quarterbacks, not just in the American Conference, but one of the highest rated in the country, along with safety Evan Brown, you'll remember from the earlier years in this series. He started for us, one season. Feels like it was more. Here are the career stats on the team, just to show you how experienced everybody is. Obviously, Gerald Ogletree has a little bit of playing time under his belt, but only one start. At running back, we have nobody established. We have good on-paper talent with our 2 transfer portal additions, but it's an unproven group at this stage. Receiver has DeMar Alba. We brought in some players in the portal in Ivy and June who are not expected to be major contributors, but we know Bargava well, and I'm pretty confident in that side of the ball. The offensive line is heavily experienced. Everybody has at least 1 year of full-time starting experience. 4 of the players have multiple years. The defense has Noah Herrick and Devin Noteboom, along with Max Souls as some of the more experienced returning players. The linebackers are experienced, and so are the additions in the portal at the secondary spots. So as far as new players and new roles for this year, expect obviously Gerald Ogletree to be our starter and for this to be a very pass-heavy offense. Baraka Odenibo should be the main running back with his superior change of direction skills, and he has good elusive abilities. I think he'll fit in really well to what we're doing offensively. Pierre Shembo is going to be our slot receiver. He's a very proficient route runner. Excited for him to have more of a full-time role. But we're also going to see Ofisa Orlando be that second slot and give us options for 4 receiver sets, or if Bargava's playing running back, he can be out there. At edge, Tylon Lee replaces Charlie Collins. He's a power rusher and an outstanding run defender. Excited to see him out there. He didn't get much of a chance with FSU. Andre Oladukin will probably be a rotational pass rusher. He doesn't have the highest run stopping or strength, so we're going to probably see him only in pass rushing situations. At defensive tackle, I have him redshirted right now, but I think I have to see what Jeffrey Brazil offers. He's one of those players who might not play 4 years of college football anyway with his high overall and his high development. Might have to give him a chance this year. Devon Jolly goes from being our third cornerback to our number 1. Is he ready for that role? And can we replace Marcus Gorey and Cameron Keys without any significant difficulties? You know, he was a player teams attacked in the slot. He's not going to play the slot this year. CJ Bass will be the opposite cornerback. I think we got lucky to have a player we can move to corner and get some good development this year. But again, will he be enough? Nick Raines will probably be in the slot or at least compete for that role. He's not great in man coverage. I don't think we'll play as much man as we did last year. We just don't have that same level of talent. Frederick Cruz might play some slot. Braylon Wortham, I thought he looked great during the practice. I was trying to make a lot of big plays happen downfield, and he was ruining them. He's a deep safety. I'm expecting a few interceptions this year after 5 the last 2 years with Kansas. Cordell Herring is going to be the starting strong safety, and he's a redshirt freshman with really good cover ability. Now, he also has some skills to play the slot. I just don't know if he's a good enough athlete, especially with that acceleration at 82. I have updated the playbooks for this year. I gave us a custom defensive playbook, by the way, that's going to have some 4-3 for stopping the run, and I have a 5-2 in there for goal line flexibility. I added another blitz package. For the offense, I added in a couple new formations, expanded upon a couple of the more spread out looks because I think that it's just something we're going to throw at teams and force them to show they can stop it. We're definitely going to be moving Akeem Madden around a lot in the formations. That tight end slot adjustment is something I plan to use often this year. I'll be taking a look at opposing secondaries and linebackers to see how I think they match up against Madden and use him as kind of the centerpiece of the offense, whether he's just putting stress on the defense as a guy running clearouts or if he's actually going to be catching the ball, vertically. That's not a role that's really been part of this series outside of like one game of Kiki McCracken last year. I have really high expectations for this offense this season. I think the talent is there. I just have to call it the right way and make the best use of everybody that's there. I can't wait to get year 5 underway and debut Akeem Madden, Gerald Ogletree as a starter, and this offense. I really think that despite all we lost, we are coming into this year with an offense ready to roll at a very high level. With that, everybody, thank you for watching today's video. I'd love your thoughts down below on the offseason as we now prepare for year 5, our second in the American Conference. What are your expectations of Arkansas State this season? I will see you all again soon with the start of the year against Duke. Take care.